Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the inputs of the agricultural sector, especially about the seed, fertilizer, pesticide and the irrigation sector. At the same time, we will also discuss about the importance of subsidy for the agricultural sector in India. Now let us first go to the first portion of this unit, that is the input of agricultural sector. So as you know, to produce anything, we need a lot of inputs or raw materials, but here we will discuss only about the important inputs or raw materials for the agricultural sector. So because of that, we are going to discuss about the industry of the seed, irrigation, pesticide and fertilizer. Now let us first go for the seed industry. Now the diagram is showing that over the year, the amount of seed produced and the amount of purchased seed both have increased significantly. Now the saved seed which is coming from the cultivation area is increased. That means the production of the agricultural sector has an increasing growth. Now come to the broad seed, that is the purchased seed. That means the amount of seed which is needed for the agricultural production and it is saved is not at all sufficient. That's why the economy has to purchase some amount of seed from the market. Now this diagram is showing that agricultural sector is growing continuously and that is why there is an increasing demand for the seed from this sector. And so that is the main reason that with the increase in the saved seed, there is a continuous increase of the purchased seed as well. Now if you disaggregate about the saved seed, we can see in case of oil seed, in case of groundnut and castor, the saved seed is not increased actually. Over the time, the amount of saved seed is reduced for this type of agricultural product. On the other hand, the seed for the wheat and potato is increased significantly. That means these two productions are increasing or growing successfully and other productions are not so successful. Here I have to mention one thing that regarding the saved seed is actually coming from the agricultural land. That means in the cultivation land, during the cultivation, the excess of their production is considered as the seed for the next cultivation period. So saved seed is basically coming from the agricultural land and the purchased seed is coming from the market, maybe produced artificially. Now we are going to the seed breeding method. Now what is seed breeding method? Seed breeding method is a scientific method through which the production is making faster, the seed production is becoming faster. It is a scientific way to make more variety, the quality of the seed is improved and there will be a continuous supply of seed across the country. So Indian government has introduced the concept of seed breeding method just to increase the seed supply in the agricultural sector. Now we are going to another type of seed which is very common and well known to us, that is the HIV seed, or we can call it as high yielding variety seed. This is actually a part of the Green Revolution. Now all of you know that Green Revolution has introduced in India during 1960s, especially 1966. So high yielding variety seeds is a part of the Green Revolution package and it is giving a lot of production within a short duration of time. And within next 10 years, it is seen that around 76 million hectares of agricultural land of this country was under the control of the HIV seeds. But if we again disaggregate the impact of the HIV seeds for different type of agricultural production, then we can see it is almost 90% successful in case of wheat production only. All other productions didn't get that much of success. Only wheat production across the country is getting the full positive effect of the high yielding variety seed. Now we are going to discuss about the steps taken by the government for the development of the seed industry. First of all, central government has invested a lot of money for the research and development of the seed industry so that quality seed can be available, continuous supply of seed will be there, and obviously more variety will be available for the agricultural farmers. At the same time, the continuous supply of the seed is also taken care of by the central government. At the same time, it has to be remember that agricultural farmers are always with a crisis of money. So, the proper lending facility is also given by the central government for the agricultural farmers. And it has to be remembered also that only seed supply cannot improve the agricultural production, because agricultural production is a package. It needs some other inputs as well, a sufficient other inputs as well. So that is why central government is also improving the fertilizer, pesticide, irrigation sector simultaneously so that agricultural farmers will get the full benefit of the improved seed which is actually available by the central government for the agricultural farmers. Now we are going to discuss about the stages of seed production. Basically, there are three stages of seed production. The first one is the breeder seed, that is just the initial part of the breed production. Initially, this part of function is done by the central government, ICAR, which is actually under the control of the central government. But then after, because of the huge demand of the seed from the agricultural sector, Indian government has relaxed this concept, and now the private sector can also produce the breeder seed. After producing the breeder seed, it is multiplied, and then we are getting the foundation seed. Now the foundation seed is still produced by the government of India and different state governments, and then after it is distributed by the government to the farmer. And finally comes the certified seed or the quality seed. So this is the final stage of production of the seed, which is actually distributed. Finally, this part of the seed is actually distributed among the farmers for the further development of the cultivation. Now we are going to discuss about the seed bill, which is introduced by the central government in 2004. So what are the main policy under the seed bill? First of all, through the agronomic performance data, any type of variety that should be registered, and it is compulsory. At the same time, export and import of seed, this is controlled by the central government. And ICAR, the state agricultural universities, they are also getting affiliation from the central government so that they can also contribute to the seed industry for the development, for the research and development, for the invention of the new variety of seed, they can also contribute now. But at the same time, there is a relaxation to the agricultural farmers that they may not register themselves to exchange their seed. So they can purchase, they can sell their seed in the market without any registration or without any control. Now we are going to discuss about the second important input for the agricultural sector, that is about the fertilizer. Now, in a study, it is seen that in India, the farmers are using 1/10 of the required fertilizer. So, we can understand in terms of the requirement, the use of fertilizer is quite less in this country. Now, India has a huge population, so the demand for the food grain is increasing every day. Now, to support this demand, there should be a continuous supply, and the supply is only possible when proper use of fertilizer is there in a given land of agricultural sector. Now it is also seen that if we want to increase the production up to 30 to 40 kg per hectare, then another 40 to 65 kgs of fertilizer should be used in the agricultural land. So it is possible to use the production in the agricultural sector. What is required? The required thing is there should be proper and the proportionate use of the fertilizer. Now we are going to discuss about the availability of the fertilizer in case of Indian market. Basically, nitrogenous and phosphatic fertilizers are used. Mostly these fertilizers are used in the agricultural sector. So if you look at the table, you can see over the year the availability of these two types of fertilizers in India is quite rising. So the growth of availability is very high in this country. At the same time, if you look at the import data, India is also importing a significant part of its fertilizer used from outside the country. So here we can understand the demand of fertilizer is increasing in this country day by day. Now, if we disaggregate the application of the fertilizer across the state, we can see in case of Haryana, Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, they are using a lot of fertilizer and the demand of fertilizer is quite high in this region. That implies the agricultural sector is working successfully there, and especially the green revolution is very successful in these regions. On the other hand, in case of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, the demand of fertilizer is not so high. So that means the agricultural sector is not working so successfully in these regions. The green revolution is not so effective there. So there is an imbalance between the fertilizer use across the country. Now we are going to see about the steps taken by the 10th Finance Commission regarding the use of the fertilizer. There we are watching the 10th Finance Commission has surveyed the country as a whole, and the survey report was saying that some of the states are not using the fertilizer sufficiently. That means according to their requirement, there is a lack of supply according to as compared to the demand of the fertilizer in those states. On the other hand, it is also seen the states who are using a lot of fertilizer, the production is not increasing that much in these regions. So the survey was trying to find out the reason behind that. And what are the findings? They are watching the availability of the micronutrients, the availability of the organic component in the land was quite low. And that was the reason behind the low productivity of these areas. At the same time, it has to be mentioned that the proper use of fertilizer was not there. So they are using a lot of fertilizer. That doesn't mean the proportionate use of fertilizer or the proportional use of different type of fertilizers is okay there. So they are actually using imbalanced. They are using fertilizer in the imbalanced way. And based on this survey, the 10th Finance Commission has introduced the integrated nutrient management system. That system will work out so that the states can use in the proper proportion. They will get sufficient fertilizer as well as they will use the fertilizer according to the requirement, not in the imbalanced way. Now we are going to discuss about the steps taken by the 12th Finance Commission regarding the use of the fertilizer. So 12th Finance Commission was saying that India is using a lot of chemical fertilizer, and if you rank in terms of use of fertilizer, India has second rank in the world. So India is the second highest user of the chemical fertilizer. So in terms of the absolute number, a lot of fertilizer is actually used in the country, that we can understand. But at the same time, the use of fertilizer is actually in the imbalanced way. And as a lot of chemical fertilizer is used in this country, so the negative impact is coming out. The soil is becoming damaged permanently, and it is seen that after green revolution, the percentage of the wasteland in this country is increasing continuously. What is wasteland? Wasteland means the land which is of no use. That means this land cannot be used for agricultural purpose anymore. So because of this imbalanced use of the chemical fertilizer, the country is getting significant proportion of the wasteland and the percentage is rising, which is quite alarming. And based on this study, the 12th Finance Commission is giving more importance on the use of the organic fertilizer, not to use the chemical fertilizer. So less use of chemical fertilizer and more use of organic fertilizer. That was the basic thing which was said by the 12th Finance Commission to the agricultural farmers. Now we are going to discuss about the third input, that is the pesticide. Now pesticide means all the insecticides, herbicide, fungicides, these are all under the umbrella of the pesticide. But in case of India, mostly insecticides are considered as the pesticide. Now, pesticides are used for two purposes. The first one is the prevention purpose, which is used before the cultivation just to avoid the impact of any damage through the pest. And another is the intervention purpose. During the cultivation, sometimes the farmers are using the pesticides just to avoid the negative impact of the attack of the insects or pests. Now, we are showing you the amount of pesticides which is being used in India for last 40 years. So there we can see that percentage of pesticide use is quite increased during this period. So we can understand the farmers are actually using a lot of pesticides in their agricultural field. Now we are going to discuss about the impact of the pesticide. As I am saying that pesticide is basically some chemical. So as some chemical things are used or it is sprayed in the agricultural land, so the most harmful effect is getting the agricultural farmers, they are getting the most harmful effect. They are getting some health hazard, maybe their lungs are damaged, they are getting the skin problem, etc. At the same time, the environment is also affected through this chemical use. There is a lot of water pollution, air pollution. So environment is also getting the harmful effect of this chemical pesticide. Now come to the consumer. They are also the human being. As these chemical pesticides are harmful for the pest, they are equally harmful for the human being. So the human body, they are also damaged. They are becoming more and more damage, they are getting the damage through this use of the pesticide. At the same time, we have to remember the pests are also getting the immunity against the pesticides, and that is why more and more use of pesticides are required to control those pests. So this is actually a trap. Use of pesticide, pests are getting immune. So to control them, again more pesticides is used. So it is a trap. Once the farmers are inside this trap, it is very difficult to come out from this trap. So now we are coming to the last input, that is the irrigation. Now the diagram is showing that in case of irrigation, the land covered under the irrigation is increasing in this country over the years. But at the same time, the total cropped area is also increasing. So the gap between the total cropped area and the net irrigated land is still there. So the gap is not reduced over the year. It is still there. So here government has to intervene in this area and give irrigation facility more and more so that maximum cropped area will get the benefit of the irrigation. Now we are going to discuss about the second part of the unit, that is the agricultural subsidy. If you go through the data, then we can see around 2% of India's GDP is going to the agricultural sector as subsidy. If we look at the income of the agricultural farmers, then around 21% of their income is actually the subsidy given by either state government or by the central government. Now, if you look at the total amount of subsidy which is given by the government to different sectors of the country, then we can see that around 10% of the subsidy is going only to the agricultural sector. So, we can understand the huge amount of subsidy is actually given or allotted by the government to the agricultural sector. Now, if we look at this diagram, we are watching the subsidy for different inputs of agricultural sector. So, there we see the percentage of subsidy for the fertilizer and for irrigation is falling over the time. And as we already discussed, now the private sector can produce the fertilizer and can sell the fertilizer in the market, so they can everyone can purchase fertilizer from the market at the market rate of interest. So the significance of the subsidy from the government to the fertilizer sector is falling, and that is why government has also reduced the percentage share of the subsidy for the fertilizer. But on the other hand, if you look at the diagram, we can see the subsidy for the electricity which is used in the agricultural sector is increasing for the time. So if you look at the data, then we can see that during this time, around 200% increase of the subsidy is there for the agricultural electricity use. Other than this input, agricultural subsidy is falling for all other inputs. Only in case of electricity, the percentage of subsidy is rising over the time. Now, we are going to discuss about the subsidy for the seed industry. Here, the government is watching, there is a study. The study was showing that farmers are actually not aware of the importance of the seed. They are not aware of the availability of the inputs in the market. And even if they have money and they have some awareness about the input, they are actually not interested to invest their money to use those inputs sufficiently, because they know ultimately their production is dependent on the natural calamity. Once there will be any problem from the nature, so at the end they may not get any return from their investment. And because of this scarcity, because of this type of thinking, they are actually not interested to invest their limited money for the use of the raw materials. Now, given all these things, state government is giving a lot of subsidy in the seed industry so that at the minimum price, the farmers can get access of the seed and they can start their cultivation properly. Now we are going to discuss about the subsidy in the irrigation sector. There is an expert committee in 1990 who had submitted its report, and according to this report, it is said that all the canal irrigation should be under the control of the state subsidy. And through this, there will be huge expenditure by the government, as it is said to be subsidized, and that is why the report is saying there should be some amount of money that should be taken from the agricultural farmers, and that is only 1%, but it is at a cumulative rate. But as it is a temporary process, after a certain time, that is in the long run, ultimately the farmers have to give the total expenditure for irrigation. And nowadays it is seen around 50% of the irrigation facility is subsidized for the farmers. So now we are going to discuss about the subsidy for the agricultural finance. It is seen that the farmers, the 10% of the Indian farmers, they have land but they don't have money to invest to cultivate. So we can understand the importance of subsidized finance for the agricultural sector. Now, which type of finance is needed for the agricultural sector? There are basically three types of finance needed for the agricultural production. It is long run, medium term and the short term finance. Why the long term finance is needed? The long term finance is needed to improve the health of the soil. It is needed for the fencing of the field, etc. So as this need, obviously it is also needed for the development of the human capital of the agricultural farmers. So we can understand it will take a lot of time to recover this type of money, and so the long term loan is for 15 to 20 years. Now why the medium term loan is needed? The medium term loan is needed for the purchasing of tractors, threshers, etc. So basically for 10 to 15 years, that should be the period of such type of loan. Now, if some uncertainty is there, if some natural devastation is there, and suddenly there is a lack of money for the agricultural farmers, they need some money for the short term. This is maximum of 2 years. So from the discussion, we can understand the importance of the inputs, especially those 4 inputs, that is the seed, irrigation, fertilizer, pesticide, the importance of these inputs for the agricultural production. And at the same time, we can also understand the importance of subsidy in the agricultural sector to have a continuous supply of the food grains in this country. But it is also true, if everything is subsidized, most of the inputs are subsidized and it is taken by the farmers at very cheap price, they may not use it properly, and that is why there may be some misuse. Like it is already seen that the pesticide, fertilizers, which are actually chemical, so it is used in the not in the proportional way and not in a proper way, and that is why the negative effect from the use of those inputs are already coming out, and the people, the environment, they are already suffering it. So it doesn't mean that everything should get subsidy always. There should be some training, there should be some knowledge given to the agricultural farmers so that they can use it properly. Then only the effect of those subsidy, the effect of the use of those inputs will be highest or most in case of India. Now we all face the problem of pandemic for last couple of years. So there the economy was actually in a standstill position. So Indian agriculture was not something exceptional. It was also facing that problem, and the agricultural farmers who are already poor, they are actually money less during this time. So they need a lot of money during this just after the pandemic to start their production again, to make it a continuous flow, and that is why through the packages which are announced by the central government, a lot of support was announced for the farmers. First of all, the seed and the inputs, these are almost free of cost for the farmers for the time being. At the same time, the agricultural farmers, they are also getting some money, that is rupees 2000 rupees per month for few days to start their regular functioning. So Indian government is also giving more subsidy to the agricultural sector just to recover the sector from the effect of the pandemic.